So I was just sitting in my office this morning thinking about how fascinating it is that we live in the most technologically advanced time in human history. I mean, we have AI that can answer almost any fucking question. We carry more computing power in our pockets than NASA had when they sent people to the moon. I mean, we're connected to almost every single person on Earth, and yet I have never seen so many people feel so disconnected from themselves. And I keep asking myself, how is that possible? How can we have more information than any generation before us, yet so many people still feel anxious, overwhelmed, burnt out, and like they've somehow lost themselves? And then it hit me. Maybe the answers we're looking for aren't actually new. Maybe they're ancient. Maybe the greatest breakthrough isn't discovering something humanity has never known. Maybe it's remembering something we've forgotten. Welcome back to More Than a Label. I'm your host, Caitlin Rose, and today I want to have a conversation with you, not about choosing science over spirituality or spirituality over science, but about what happens when they begin telling the same story. Because something incredible is happening. Modern science is beginning to validate practices that mystics, sages, indigenous cultures, and philosophers have been teaching for thousands of years. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think we're remembering. You know, something I've been noticing lately, whenever people feel completely overwhelmed, our instinct is almost always the same. We look outside of ourselves. We look for another book, another podcast, another expert, another course, another answer. And don't get me wrong, I've been on that journey. I love learning. I think education is incredibly important. But somewhere along the way, we started believing that if we just collected enough information, we would finally feel whole. Except that's not what's happening at all. We're consuming more than ever and trusting ourselves less than ever. We're drowning in information, but literally starving for wisdom. And I think there's an important distinction there. Information tells you what's possible. Wisdom helps you recognize what's true. Information can tell you how to meditate, but wisdom knows when your soul actually needs stillness. Information can tell you the science of breathing, but wisdom reminds you to pause long enough to take that breath. One fills your mind, the other transforms your life. And I think we've become so focused on collecting knowledge that we've forgotten how to cultivate wisdom. Here's what's fascinating. Modern neuroscience is beginning to explain why these ancient practices have endured for thousands of years. Take something as simple as breathing. I mean, for centuries, traditions like pranayama in yoga, Taoist breathing practices, contemplative prayer, and many indigenous traditions taught that conscious breathing could literally calm the mind, regulate emotion, and deepen spiritual awareness. They didn't have MRI machines. They didn't know about the vagus nerve, and they couldn't measure heart rate variability. But they observed something that was still profoundly true. Today, research shows that slow, diaphragmatic breathing can increase parasympathetic activity, the branch of your autonomic nervous system associated with rest, recovery, and regulation. Slow breathing has also been linked to improvements in heart rate variability, a marker associated with greater adaptability to stress. These changes help reduce physiological arousal and support emotional regulation. I mean, seriously, think about that. for thousands of years. People practice techniques because they experience the transformation. That's it. Now science is beginning to explain the mechanisms behind it. Not because science created the truth, because science gave us another language to describe it. And I think that is really beautiful. Science doesn't diminish the mystery, it helps us understand it. And this is where my heart really comes alive, because one of the philosophies that has shaped me deeply is Hermetics. One of the foundational teachings is the principle of mentalism. The all is mind. And I don't interpret that as some magical phrase that says just think positive and everything will work out. I think it's really pointing to something so much deeper. It invites us to recognize our inner world is not separate from the life we're creating or our outer world. But here's the nuance I think is often missed. Before a thought does shape your reality, it first receives your attention. And attention is what gives a thought energy. Attention is what turns an idea into a belief. Attention is what reinforces a pattern until it becomes part of your identity. And identity influences the choices that you make every single day. So when people ask me about manifestation, I don't start with affirmations. I start with awareness, because awareness is the first act of alchemy. The ancient alchemists spoke about transforming lead into gold, and most people picture that quite literally as changing metal. I see it as transforming fear into wisdom, reaction into intention, survival into conscious creation. That's the real alchemy, and it always begins by bringing light to what has been unconscious. I find it fascinating that no matter how advanced we've become as a civilization, when people feel overwhelmed, one of the first things they instinctively say is, I just need to get outside. Have you ever noticed that? We don't say we need another spreadsheet. We don't say, I need another notification, and we sure as hell don't need to spend an hour on our phones scrolling away. Something inside of us naturally longs for nature, the woods, the ocean, the mountains, the quiet trail, even just sitting quietly beneath a tree. And I don't just think that's because nature is beautiful. I mean, it is, but I think it's because somewhere deep inside of us, our nervous system remembers long before we had cities, long before we had smartphones, long before artificial light kept us awake into the middle of the night. Our biology evolved in relationship with the natural world. For hundreds of thousands of years, the rhythm of human life was guided and directed by the rising and setting of the sun, the changing of the seasons, the cycles of the moon, the sounds of the birds, the movement of the water. Nature wasn't somewhere we had to escape to. It was our home, and science is beginning to confirm what our ancestors experienced intuitively. Researchers studying the Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, have found that spending intentional time in nature is associated with reduced stress hormones, improved mood, lower blood pressure, and better attention restoration. Other research suggests that exposure to natural environments can literally support emotional well-being and help reduce mental fatigue. I mean, seriously, think about that. The environment your nervous system evolved in is still to this day one of the environments where it functions the best. It's almost as if your body recognizes something your conscious mind has forgotten. Maybe peace isn't something we manufacture. Maybe it's something we remember. And this brings me back to Hermetics again. One of the principles that has always resonated deeply with me is the principle of rhythm. Everything moves in cycles. Everything. I mean, the tides, the seasons, the moon, the breath, the heartbeat, the nervous system, even your emotions. Nothing in nature is meant to remain in one state forever. Winter gives way to spring. Night goes to morning. Inhale goes to exhale. Activity gives to rest. Expansion gives to integration. Yet look at the world we've built. We've created a culture that celebrates constant output, always producing, always achieving, always available, always connected. It's almost as if we've convinced ourselves that being human means living against the very rhythms that created us. And then we wonder why we're exhausted. We're trying to force perpetual summer inside beings that were designed to live in seasons, in flow. I think that's one of the reasons so many people feel like they're failing, but they're really not failing. They're resisting the rhythm. And resistance always creates friction. Ancient wisdom didn't teach people to force life. It taught them to flow with it. So maybe this isn't really a talk about science, and maybe it really isn't a conversation about spirituality either. Maybe it's a talk about remembering, because the more that I study neuroscience, psychology, hermetics, and the more I study these ancient philosophies, the more I keep arriving back at that same place. They're all pointing towards the same mountain. They're literally just climbing it from different sides. Science asks, how does this work? Spirituality asks, why does this matter? Psychology asks, how does this shape behavior? Hermetics asks, how does consciousness participate in creation? Different questions, one reality. And I think for a long time, we've been taught that we have to choose. Choose science or choose spirituality. Choose logic or intuition. Choose evidence or faith. But what if that's a false choice? What if we can have it all? What if science and spirituality aren't opponents? What if they're partners? Science gives us the mechanism. Spirituality gives us the meaning. Science explains what happens in the brain when you meditate. Spirituality explores what happens to your experience when you become fully present. One doesn't diminish the other. They enrich one another. And honestly, I think that's the invitation of our generation, not to become more informed, but to become more integrated, to stop separating the head from the heart, to stop separating the mind from the body, the physical from the spiritual. Because maybe wholeness isn't about adding something that's missing. Maybe it's about reconnecting the parts we've forgotten were always meant to belong together. So, if there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's this. Maybe the answers you've been searching for aren't somewhere out there waiting for the next expert to hand them to you. Maybe they've been quietly waiting underneath all the noise, underneath the constant stimulation, the endless information, the pressure to become someone else. Maybe your greatest wisdom has never left you. Maybe it just needed enough stillness to be heard again, because I truly believe that every single one of us carries something extraordinary within us. Not all the answers, but the capacity to recognize truth when we encounter it. The capacity to create, to love, to heal, to adapt, to grow, to remember. And perhaps that's why so many ancient traditions encourage silence. Not because silence is empty, but because silence is where we finally begin to hear ourselves, the whisper within. So this week, I want to invite you into a simple experiment. Before you go reaching for your phone in the morning, before you ask AI, before you search Google, before you scroll looking for someone else to tell you what to think, spend 5 quiet minutes with yourself, just yourself, all alone. Go outside, take a slow breath, watch the sunrise if you can, or a sunset if that's your thing. Ask yourself one question. What is life trying to teach me today? And then listen, not for the loudest answers, for the truest one, because I have a feeling the wisdom you've been searching for has been patiently waiting for you all along. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please, please, please share them in the comments below. These kind of conversations become richer because of the perspectives we bring together. And if you're ready to go deeper into reconnecting with yourself through nervous system regulation, ancient wisdom, and conscious creation, I'd love to welcome you into the Divine Soul Lifestyle Academy. Until next time, remember, come home to yourself. As always, be more than a label and embody your divine soul.